All right, welcome everyone. My name is Hoyt. I am the Senior Director for Coaching and Programming for Haas. Some of you may know me, but most of you probably don't. I joined Haas about 5 years ago in October 2015. My first 2 years at Haas was a part-time coach. I had just left DreamWorks Animation after spending 13 years there as their global head of learning and development. After 2 years of just part-time coaching at Haas, I committed to helping out Haas by taking the senior director role. And one of the most important factors that helped me make that decision was just simply I fell in love with what Haas was trying to do and really with the students. Many of you are the reason I am here today. So I just want to thank everyone and thank the school for just being who you are and what the school's mission is. And one of the things that actually helped me make that decision to commit to Haas as a part of my career was the simple fact that I could actually reach out and touch alumni and recent grads. Because one of the things that I knew about myself and what was important for me in my career, which we'll talk about, is understanding impact, how I need to see impact. And being 13 years at DreamWorks and seeing people grow from a production assistant all the way to a director or a producer or whatnot was extremely rewarding. And that was one of the conditions I had to think about joining Haas, because I said, well, am I here and I only see people after 2 years? It's a new bunch of people every 2 or 3 years. But just the ability to reach out and to see Haasies coming back actually helped check that box off so I could make this new career decision. Okay. So welcome and thank you. If you can turn your video on, I would appreciate it. If not, I totally get it. But we'll go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do today is ask this fundamental question: is this job still right for you? So as a part of my journey, one of the things that I started to do, and this is actually where this title comes from, is that as I worked with students across all the programs, I would always encounter some students that were like, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right career move when I graduate, ... And when they were unsure, I would say, you know what, you have a lot career services for life. So let's take advantage of that. And so what I would do is I would actually put an appointment on the calendar. It was an annual appointment on the calendar with this title: is this job still right for you? Right? And it was just a simple appointment, a calling to them to say, every year, do a career checkup and ask yourself this question: is this job still right for you? And it was an open invitation to say, hey, if the answer is no, or maybe not, come in and see us. If the answer was yes, come and see us if you want to chat and catch up. Otherwise, go about your business. And so, this was the impetus for me diving into alumni. Okay, so the question that we want to ask today is, how do you know when to move on? Right, this is something that I when I work with alumni, a question that pops up constantly. And so what we're going to do is I want everyone to take a minute, and I want you to think about what has caused you to move on in the past. Just take a minute and reflect on what has caused you to move on in the past. Think about what has caused you to move on in the past. And what we're going to do next is we're going to put you in trios, and I want you to just to share with each other so you can hear other people's experiences and understand some of their criteria. Let me get the room set up. And I'm going to include some of the staff. If I can't exclude you from the rooms, I'm going to put you in the rooms too. And it's a good thing for everyone to do. Just think about what has caused you to move on in the past, willingly or otherwise, right? And let me put everyone in trios. Okay, is everyone good? And just share with each other. It's about 5 minutes, and I'll bring you all back. Then we'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll move on to another question. Okay, here we go. All right. Welcome everyone back. Great. Cool. What were some of the reasons? With people on, anybody want to share? Go ahead. We're small enough. You can go ahead and mute yourself and just shout out. What were some reasons that you learned that was interesting, or yourself? Anybody?
I'm going to put someone on blast in my group. They were talking about leaving a situation when an opportunity comes along. So when you have that shiny new opportunity,
yes,
that the time to take it and leave your comfortable position.
Great. Yes, opportunity pops up, your network pays off. Someone says, hey, there's an opening. I know that you're looking for this, right? Again, importance of the network there. How many people here, raise your hands, left, management change, boss left, wanted a new manager, right? Ariana, I can see you're nodding your head. Yeah, right. Okay, that happens. So how many people left for internal reasons? Go ahead and unmute yourself or just put it in the chat box. Like how many people here just actively said, oh my God, I just realized I'm bored, and they decided to leave, right? Okay, so that's what you want to do. When you want to think about it, when we think about moving on, right? A lot of times it's external forces or stimuluses that prod us. We don't really think about how do I check? When do I check? What are the criteria that I should be checking? Okay, so the one thing I know about careers and about people moving on is that there's two stages. There's an impetus to move on, and sometimes we don't recognize that until we're forced to recognize it. And then there is the second impetus, the getting the energy to do the steps to actually move on, right? So one of the things I want everyone to think about now, this is just to get our brains warmed up around this topic and to share our experiences, is think about what are the things that have prevented you from moving on, right? A lot of times when I chat and coach with folks, alumni or whatnot, I hear this constantly. When they finally make that, they pull that trigger and they reach out to us for help. This is very common. They say, you know what, I really should have moved on 2 years ago, or I really should have talked to you 9 months ago or 6 months ago. Common theme, right? And so what I want everyone to do, and we're trying to do in these first two questions, just to get it out of our subconscious, just to get it out of our bodies and just talk about it out loud. I have this phrase that I use. If you've ever taken a class from me, it's not real till you say it out loud. It's fundamental about how we work and how our brains work and how our senses work. It's not real until you say it out loud. And so I want everyone here to take another minute and think about what has prevented you from moving on. It could be a lot of reasons. It could be social reasons. It could be economic reasons. It could be just energy reasons. So think about what has prevented you from moving on, right? Again, the idea is just to get it out of our brains. Okay. And I'm going to, in the spirit of getting alumni mixing with other alumni, meeting new people, I'm going to recreate the rooms and put you all in, and just again take just a few minutes and just chat, listen to some of the reasons of what other people have prevented them from moving on. It might be reasons you've had and it's been buried, and like, oh yeah, that's true for me too, right? Just share a little bit. Okay, so I'll bring you back and then we'll get into, I'm going to give you three techniques to kind of help you mitigate and how to figure this out, when to move on. Okay, because I want people to be proactive about it. Okay, so here we go. I'll bring you back in 4 or 5 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. Awesome. So, what were some of the reasons? What were some of the reasons that you heard? Anybody, go ahead and mute. I'm going to pick on Arthur.
Well, several members in our group said golden handcuffs.
Ah, yes. Right. Good. Ronak, what about you? What did you hear?
Some feedback was around green card and having to wait it out.
Yep.
Others were just around, the people and the work. So those were some of the ones that I heard.
Great. What about, let's see, Elise. Nope, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Some of it was around, for me, it was fear of the
Yes.
unknown. And then for others, it was a matter of security and giving up like a certain lifestyle they were used to.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. That takes a little bit of vulnerability. Yeah, fear dominates a lot of our things. So a lot of times reasons are external or internal or a mix of the two. So here's some common ones, right? And reasons why. What prevents us from making change? Humans are just habit-making machines. We make habits real fast. Think about in this time in the pandemic. Think about at the very beginning of the pandemic, everyone's like, oh my God, this is so different, it's changed. Now think about the idea of returning to work in person, right? How many people are like, oh my God, I've got anxiety, we gotta all get back together again, right? We've adapted so quickly to this new way of working that going back is difficult, even though we know it, we know what that looks like. We've been there, we've done that, right? So again, humans are habit-making machines, and that prevents us from making changes. It's literally there, right? Momentum, right? Human beings are momentum. A lot of times, again, when people say, I really should have made change 3 years ago, it was momentum carried them through, right? It was just, I just got caught up and it just kept on going. We live our lives, right? Uncertainty, as Elise pointed out, right? Uncertainty about the future. Sometimes we make a bargain with the devil we know instead of the devil we don't, right? Time and energy. Once you actually make that decision, it's like, I just worked with a student yesterday who's maybe just 3 years out from the program. And she was like, oh, I just the thought of making a change just gives me a lot of anxiety and the energy. And so like, hey, doesn't have to happen in a month. Let's stretch it out over 4 months. Let's ease into it, right? Those are the things that you can do, right? And a lot of times we're traumatized by the experience of getting that job, the anxiety, the feelings it brings to us of worthiness, right? Am I enough? The fear of imposter syndrome, which is still true for, and people, no matter how many years of experience, always have a little bit of imposter syndrome. It's just part of our human nature. Can I live up to expectations, this new role? I'm a master now. Do I want to be in that new role where I'm not the master now, right? All these things come up and we lack processes. How do I do this? Especially if you've been in a role for X number of years, it's like, oh my God, it's that idea of getting back in the wagon. So these are a lot of the things that prevents us from making change, right? So one of the things we're going to do here is really try to figure out what is your critical test to initiate the job search, right? What is it? We talk about criteria in job searching, like what's my criteria for the next gig, but we actually don't talk about our criteria for when do I initiate a job search. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to give you 3 different techniques. One is really about being proactive, right? And how can we use signals to trigger for expression? It doesn't mean you have to change, but it gives you triggers to like, maybe I should look into this a little bit more. And method 1 is really founded on this idea of learning agility, all right? So what does the research say about learning agility, right? Learning agility is, what they've done is they studied, there was, I think, a 10-year study that done by CCL and some other folks to back it up. And they basically looked at all the performers, career-long performers in a bunch of different companies. And they looked and broke down whatever their factors that made them successful and kept them growing, despite the disruptions in the economy, despite the disruptions in their industries. And this is important because we live in a world where that I made it moment that we all dreamed of, our parents told us about, right? Doesn't exist anymore. Or if it does exist, it lasts for a shorter period of time than we wish it would, right? And so this idea of learning agility was developed and tested out, right? So the traditional way of development or career development was this idea of what they call vertical development. You had your role and your role comprised of everything in this cup. And you would spend your career and your lifetime just filling that cup up with stuff, right? And it was always about, what more do I need to do? How can I fill that cup up? That's what they call vertical learning. It's really about increasing your capabilities. That's all we focused on, right? Now, that is still true today, except for imagine you've spent 10, 12 years, right, being an expert at statistics, right? Then all of a sudden along comes machine learning and AI. right? What happens to your role? Right? You're a cab driver. You know the streets of San Francisco inside out. You know every shortcut, you know every one-way street, the traffic patterns. And someone makes an app that gives this data to drivers. And someone makes another app that crowdsources who can drive who elsewhere, right? So you can still be great. And there's still many careers where the vertical approach works, but when disruption happens, people that have invested in this vertical development are less able to pivot. They're less able to be agile in the next job search and so forth, right? So out of this learning agility, what they discovered with people that were really successful, right, took a more modern approach, and this is called horizontal development. So same thing, you have your role, your current role, and your role and your capabilities, and you're at a certain level, and you focus on moving it up. But they also said, don't focus on just moving up, right? How do you make the cup bigger? That's the modern day in terms of talent development, in terms of learning development, in terms of developing career agility. It's really around how am I making the cup bigger so I can fill it and widen it at the same time, right? And it's really about expanding capabilities, right? So through this study, they've actually said, what were the benefits, right? One thing they want to point out was that experience doesn't indicate learning, right? You can spend, I'm sure you've all met folks that have spent X number of years at a company, and they just doesn't indicate learning, right? They've been doing the same thing. They haven't stretched themselves and pushed them down. Again, totally get it. Human beings are habits of creatures. All those things apply above, right? We can get caught up in the momentum, right? Again, the benefit of is ability to survive disruptions, continuously unpack your potential, and all these things. So people in this area actually, by the way, part of what the development is leadership skills, right? It's something that's important to me because this is what HOS is all about, is helping people become leaders, whether you have the title or not, but just leading others, right? And again, some other benefits here, which I'll send the slide deck out. What I really want to get to is what does it mean, right? So learning agility is defined as finding yourself in a new situation, not knowing what to do, and just simply figuring out what to do, right? It's dealing with uncertainty. And there's a certain cycle, and we're going to use this cycle to actually figure out as a litmus test, right, how to do it. So the learning agility cycle is you reflect after every project or every assignment that you have. Are you taking the time to reflect on the work that you just did? So one thing to think about. Think about everyone. I want everyone to do here, just to kind of make it real, is just like think about the last 1 or 2 projects that you've done. Right? Think about what was one of the last 2 projects you've done, and think about, at the end of the project, did I actually take time to reflect on it? Right? Or did I just jump onto the next project? Right? Did I take time to reflect on it? Right? And by the way, you can't rely on the organization to do this for you, to put that, hey, let's have the debrief of that project, right? That's us relying on the organization. But I want you to think about, do I have a practice of reflecting after every project that I've done of what went on? And then the next step is what they found in people that had learning agility. Did I make sense of what was going on? It might be a soft skill. It might be like, I really didn't understand. Everything was going fine until I hit that department. I really didn't understand the politics there. Are you making sense of what was going on in there? Then are you internalizing it, owning that? Oh, I could have done this better, or I did that really well, but next time I'm going to do this, right? And then applying into the next time. And the last one is seeking. Am I actively saying, that's really interesting. I want to get better at this. I want to get better at the internal politics. Maybe the next project I want to work with that group again. Or I want to stretch myself. Maybe I need to find a project or ask for a project that's going to push my uncomfortableness of like working with more people, or working with people that I'm nervous. As an Asian, I might culturally say like, oh my God, I went through this a long time ago where like, I don't like working with people, my superiors above me, because like I get really nervous. I can't function. I can't perform, right? I had to get over that at some point. And now I have the opposite problem. I have problems with authority. Right? But that's it, is seeking those things. So when you think about this learning agility cycle, and I'm giving you a brief version of it, and I think in the future we're going to offer an alumni a deeper dive in this for alumni. So watch out for that in the newsletter. I'm developing that right now and testing out on the MBAs. But right now, what we're going to do is focus on the reflecting and seeking part. Okay, those are the two of those 5 steps. Those are the 2 key points. So when we think about reflecting, right? Here's what I want you to do. We're going to do a quick exercise here. Think of, again, I want everyone here to think about the last 1 or 2 projects that you've done. Okay. Okay, has everyone got that? Think about it. If you have 2, pick the hardest one, you know. Okay. And I want you to ask, I'm going to ask yourself 3 questions. This is kind of the litmus test. After every project you're going to do, you're going to ask yourself, what did I learn about the work itself? Did I learn anything new about the work? And the work is what I'm calling the technical things, right? Like if I'm in my role, I might ask myself, did I learn anything new about building a class or about presenting the class? Did I learn anything new about designing a worksheet or something like that? So think about, did you learn anything new about the work itself? Yes, great. If no, that's okay. Okay. Don't try to force it. Okay. Now I want everyone here, go ahead and if you can show me a raise of hands, and if you find your little hand button, let me go back to this. Raise your hands if you've learned something new about the work. Okay, Richard, keep them up. Just keep them up because I've got 2 screens worth to scan through. Okay, a few people. Great. Good. Okay, go ahead, put your hands down. The next question I'm going to ask is simply, what did you learn about working with others? What did you learn about working with others? This is the interpersonal dynamic stuff. This is the politics, teamwork, collaboration, cross-functional collaboration, cultural things. What did you learn about working with others? So when we think about our jobs in our roles, right? There's the technical things, and there's every role in the modern day involves other people, right? Did you learn anything about working with others? How to influence? Go ahead, raise your hands if you have. I can keep them up so I can scan both screens. Did you learn anything about working with others? Okay, good. A little bit more. Good. Thank you. Does anybody want to share what they learned about working with others? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you want. Not, I'm going to cold call Ariana.
Yeah, what I learned was working with others is much harder than the technical stuff.
Yeah. What's the lesson you take away? Yeah.
Yeah, and that every dynamic is different depending on what team you're working with and then what company you're working with. So I was in a project recently where I learned how to do something that was very interesting to me, and I was like geeking out with my Excel spreadsheet.
Nice.
But then in order to make that into a reality, you need a lot more people around you, and then convincing other teams to get the resources that you need, that is significantly harder than trying to figure out the Excel spreadsheet. And I always knew that, but then it's always surprises me every time. And I was a new member of the team. I was a new employee at that time. So also trying to get to know the company, get to know how things are done. So I learn about how things are done in this new company.
Great. That sounds like a really rich experience in terms of learning about others, working with others. Great. Anyone else want to add what they learned about working with others in the last project? William, I see your hand is either up saying, yes, I learned something new, or you're volunteering to talk.
Hi.
Hi.
I worked in my prior role, I was in business development, worked in a company that was mainly in Finland. So 90% of the company was in Finland. So I
Nice.
learned quite a bit just culturally.
Yes.
That we are very different. Americans are very different than the Finnish, and so yeah, that's one of the aspects I enjoyed about that work was just trying to learn how to manage through the cultural differences and the language differences and the amount of information that people are willing to share and how open. So it was a fun learning experience.
All right, great, thank you. Again, sounds like a rich experience, right? So two things, right? First question, right? What did you learn about the work itself? What did you learn about working with others? The third question that you're going to ask yourself is simply, what did you learn about yourself? You know, in the last project you did, the last couple of projects, did you learn anything about yourself? Whether it's your own values, beliefs you had that got changed, beliefs that you had that got reaffirmed, that maybe had more resiliency. I know a lot of students now with the pandemic are discovering their limits of resiliency or grit, what they need. These are moments where we learn about ourselves, right? So did you learn anything about yourself? Okay, take a moment and think about that. Okay. I'll give you an example for myself. I recently, and this is one of the techniques I use, and I'll talk about it later, but I recently was on a job search and I got an offer from Netflix Animation to run their training group. I turned them down, but so I'm still here. I love Haas, I love the impact. But what I learned about myself was that I have ideas about my own criteria, and they're different Hoyts. There's the Hoyt that was 5 or 6 years ago that would have jumped at that job. And there's the Hoyt today after working at Haas, and my feeling of what gives me impact and what gives me meaningful work has changed. But I was lured by that offer because I hadn't updated myself. I was living on this criteria when I left. And it's one of the things that, I need to do that. So I learned about what was compelling about that role versus today's role. And again, one of the things I'll talk about, what I learned was that I know a role is right for me when I'm excited and scared at the same time, right? And you have to have the right balance. You can't be too scared. That's terrifying. Let's just put that out there. So everyone raise your hands if you, in the last project, again, we're talking about, did you learn anything about yourself? Raise your hands. And again, it's okay if you didn't. Right? Keep your hands up so I can scan around. Yeah, right? It's a little bit less than what we had, right? Okay, right. So that's some of the things that what you want to do is think about in terms at the end of every project. And so once you start to do that, and by the way, sometimes you're like, I don't know if I did this or not. That's where the reflecting piece comes from. This idea of reflecting on the project, you can start to do that. And so what you want to then do is, and here's what I use. Actually, I use this all the time. I use this on myself. I use this all the time with students I work with, alumni that are coming back. I simply ask the question, right? I ask these 3 questions over the couple of projects, and I say, if you look back at your projects and you have a series of projects where you're just getting 3 out of the 3, your learning agility is being pushed. You're learning, you're growing in all these 3 different ways. That's awesome, right? You're doing fine in terms of that aspect of learning, right? Now, financially and other factors maybe playing into it, maybe you should change, but just as a role itself, you're learning and developing. If you're getting 2 out of the 3, that's still good, right? You're still getting 2 out of the 3, and not every project has to have 3 out of 3. You can have 3 out of 3, 3 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3. That's fine. You got this learning agility, you're getting pushed, you get this growth curve, right? Where I start to get concerned is, and I want everyone to think about it, is when you only have 1 out of 3. If you have a series of projects where you're only getting 1 out of the 3 lessons, right, learnings and stuff like that, that's when I get concerned, because to me, it's indicating that the graph is starting to peak down, right, in terms of learning, right? And this is what I use as a simple litmus test to do a quick check. Is this job still right for me? What is still important? It's a simple thing to do. You can track, again, after every project you do, 3 questions, check them off, right? 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, you're going fine. If you get a series where it's 1 out of 3, it's a good time to have a conversation with your manager or check in with yourself. Because remember, one of the points of learning agility is seeking. This is the next thing I want you all to think about is think about the last time that you were actively asking your manager for a particular type of project. Like, you know what, the next project I want is something like this, that you were actually asking for something to push yourself. So take a moment and think, when was the last time? Or have I ever done that? Because a lot of times when we get into organizations, we tend to think that the organizations will take care of our careers, right? It's a blind assumption, it's an implicit assumption that our parents embedded on us. Oh, you find a large company, work for them, you'll be safe and secure, and they'll take care of you for careers, right? We've all heard this somewhere down the line. It's not true. It's not true. It's great if you have a manager that's actually actively looking out for your career. Fantastic. By the way, if any of you are leading people, these are 3 good questions you should always ask your employees just to check in on their own growth and whether or not you may have to help push them along, help them stretch by saying, let's find a project, stretch project, where we're going to push more about you learning, working with others, right? Or pushing that technical side. I did this class for the MBUs and they all realized there were a lot of people managers, like they said, oh my God, we should be asking our employees this. Yes, it's a good way. Okay, so give me a show of hands how many of you were active in the last year or so? Did you actively seek out a new project or stretch project or self-generate on your own? Like, man, I really want to try this. It's a little scary, but I want to do it. Give me a show, raise of hands. 1, 2, couple. Yeah. I think a lot less, right? But that's it. That's really what you want to think about in terms of learning. It's really a great way of just checking yourself. Am I on that learning curve? Am I starting to taper out? And it's a really good way to start that conversation. Okay, any questions about that? That's called learning agility. Again, there's some steps in between, but I just covered the 2 steps. Time to reflect, and are you seeking? 2 key points. And a reflection piece, 3 questions. Am I learning anything about the work? Am I learning anything about working with people? Am I learning anything about myself? Okay. Any questions? We're going to move on to method number 2. Okay. Method number 2 is kind of just a big picture step back. Again, I encourage people to do this every year. And it's really based around the research of what makes meaningful, engaging work, right? And the studies have found that there's 4 factors. There's mastery. Mastery is this simple fact that, am I getting good at the things that I want to get good at? Just simply ask yourself, am I in a role, or am I in an industry, in a company where I'm continuously have the opportunities to get better at the things that I care about? And that's important. The things that you care about, the things that you enjoy using. Are you getting better at the capabilities and that you want to use? And there's that opportunity in this organization, right? That requires a lot of autonomy. At DreamWorks Animation, I had a lot of autonomy to take new directions. At Haas, I'm blessed that my manager gives me enough freedom to hang myself, and so I can pursue things that are interesting and see that work. Okay, give me a show of hands. Give me a show of hands where you have, in your current role, you have that ability or mastery. Right? Good, a couple of people. It's okay if it doesn't. Great, right? So that's what you want to think about. And again, thing to check out every year. The second thing you want to think about is, it's kind of what I talked about. Along with mastery comes autonomy. Do I have enough autonomy? And by the way, for everyone, autonomy is different, right? Do I have enough autonomy to be able to pursue the work, pursue the goals in the way I want to, right? Do I have enough autonomy? You know, there's many ways to get to the goal, or does my manager, does the organization say, no, you have to do it this way? Absolutely, these 3 steps. Doesn't give you room to try, experiment, or anything like that. Do you have enough autonomy in your role? Right? So give me a show of hands when you think about that you have enough autonomy in your role. Yeah. Okay. Good. By the way, autonomy for me is one of my strongest criteria. So whenever I take on a new role, I literally will ask. And I ask generally in this way, will you let me blow things up? Because I require a high degree of autonomy because I tap into my creativity a lot. And I know when I do stuff, it makes people uncomfortable. It's because I want to push the edge. If that answer is no, I don't need to be there and be stressed my entire career at that company. Right? It's a question. I actually, fair enough. They'll ask me, "What do you mean by blow it up?" And I'll explain. but I use that as a criteria when I start to pursue other roles, right? So I know that about myself. Okay, third thing, right? Third thing. Does the work that you're doing right now, do you feel like it's purposeful? It's meaningful? So the first one is mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Does it feel like that the amount of time and effort that you put in, you can actually feel and see that other people are impacted by it and you see the purpose and meaningful? Go ahead and raise your hands if you do that. If you, in your current role, that you feel that the work is meaningful and purposeful. Okay, good. Let's see if a few more hands come up. I'm blessed in the work I do, is that when I do coaching sessions, that the student walks away making progress, that gives me meaning. And it only takes one student making progress for me to feel like I had a good week. So everyone's different. For some people, it might be every day. For some people that are long projects, they're wired for like, oh, 3 years, this is gonna come to fruition. That's amazing. For other people, like 3 years, oh my God, I can't wait that long for a project to have impact, right? So everyone's wired differently. But for you, what do you feel like you have and can see the purpose? Not just intellectually understand it, but feel it, okay? Now, the last factor in meaningful work is, are you doing this with a bunch of people that you like being around with? It's called belonging. Do you feel like the people that you're working with are awesome, that they could be family or close, for everyone, that you feel like you have a sense of belonging in the organization or the team? Does it have to be the organization? A lot of times people are satisfied with just this good sense of belonging in the team, right? Go ahead and raise your hands if that is true for you. Right. Okay. Right. So this is again, one litmus test is simply these 4 things: mastery, autonomy, purpose, and belonging. And what studies have shown is that we're always in a constant search for all 4 of these. Now, a lot of times as we grow in our careers and stuff, we pick up one, then we pick up the other. Then, because a lot of times we're in our careers, we're trying to figure out what that means for me. What does mastery mean for me? What is the thing I want to master? What level of autonomy do I need? What is my sense of purpose? Again, by the way, we can help you with this in coaching. We have simple frameworks and models to help you figure this stuff out. What is the culture I want to be that I can feel like I'm belonging, right? When you hit all 4, it's magical. You want to stay there, right? When you're missing 1 or 2 of these, we tend to replace it with more money or more benefits, right? Because that's it. We're sacrificing something. And I've actually seen this at DreamWorks where this was a place where I found all 4. And other groups had that. But the minute that someone took away autonomy, I looked at the group, and all of a sudden people were asking for more money in the next rounds of stuff. People were starting to leave and stuff. So whenever a structural change happened that actually took away people's autonomy, it was clear to me what was going on, right? And so I've seen this also in other organizations where all of a sudden people had visibility on their impact, but through an organizational change, they no longer had that visibility on the impact. Those folks started looking for other jobs, or they started asking for more money, right? So I was able to witness these 4 factors, but that's method 2. Every year, ask yourself these 4 things. Am I on track? What is missing, right? And this also helps you set when I'm looking for the next role or gig or whatever, what do I want to try to get from that next role that fulfills these 4 things? Okay. Any questions on method 2? Right? Mastery, autonomy, purpose, and belonging. Okay. Method 3. Method 3 is just more about practices and processes that you want to put into place. Things that I recommend. Some of these I use myself, or I have my mentees use too. Right. Every 2 to 3 years, put it in your calendar. Engage in a job search. Right. If you're process oriented, and you go by your calendar or tasks, whatever, every 2 to 3 years, I actually encourage people to do this. Even if you love your job, I encourage you to do this. Does two things. Number one, you kind of figure out what your worth is, and you actually start to understand when you go through this process, you start to appreciate what is it that I'm missing that makes another gig attractive? What is it that I really appreciate? Because I see I've gone out and interviewed 2 or 3 things, and like none of these have what I have over here. So it makes you appreciate what you have. Because here's what I know about our brains. Most of our senses in our brains works on differencing. This is something I learned in learning, right? Until we have something to compare against, we don't know. And this forces you to set up that comparison. Go out, and it doesn't mean you have to take the job or role, right? But it forces you to think about it. It forces you to appreciate what you have. It forces you to say, what made that one, what made this role as attractive? Oh, it's offering me this, and I don't have that in my current gig. Doesn't mean you have to go for it to get there and sacrifice what you have if you're happy, but it tells you like, oh man, maybe I should have talked to my manager to get this extra thing on my gig, or how can I job craft, or how can I, again, pursue a project like this in my own company, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a good way to update your sense of self, right? Because our brains are, again, once I anchored to like what my criteria was 6 years ago for a new gig, I didn't update it until I went on this job search. And I was forced to do it, like, oh, let me update. Okay, so that's another process you can do. Put on your calendar an annual appointment. Is this job still right for you? Again, this whole class started off when I started doing that for the alum that I worked with, or the graduates I was working with. Forces you, it's a day where you just force yourself to like go get a coffee with a friend, talk it out with a cohort colleague, classmate, and just talk about, hey, I've been at this job for you. Let's just talk and share what's going on, right? Run yourself through these things. I think I've been learning a lot. Great, or I think, oh, I actually realize I'm not learning a lot. I'm just doing a lot more the same way. What's missing? Go through those 4 things, right? Set that annual appointment up. Come in and check in with us. Again, you have all lifetime services with us, right? A lot of times, and this happens a lot early in the career, sometimes in the middle of the career, we take on roles and jobs because it's a sacrifice, right? I need to sacrifice for my family. I need to sacrifice for this or that. A lot of people early in the careers, when I work with full-timers, I'm going to go to consulting. No, I'm not going to love consulting. I know it, but I'm going to sacrifice because I want to pick up valuable skills. 5 years later, they're like, oh my God, I'm still in consulting. What happened, right? That's what I call an unchecked sacrifice. They didn't set an exit criteria, right? So, but if you just do this every year, you can actually check yourself. I recently joined this job to have a sacrifice, and I think I've gotten what I need. So how do I start to leave? Again, I granted that everyone's going to have barriers to leave, like we talked about earlier. There's some barriers, but this is the moment where you want to talk to others or talk to someone in CMG. I have this barrier. I know I need to leave, but I've got this lifestyle I want to maintain, or I'm afraid of what the process is. We're here to help you with that. That's our expertise, because we can look at perspectives. We can give you stories about how other people have done it, right? To make it less scary, to make it feel accessible. Okay, so 3 simple things that you can do. It's really just either 2 or 3 years ago on a job search, or put that annual appointment down there. Okay, any questions on that? Everyone good? Scanning around it. And thank you for those who have the videos on. I really appreciate it. It helps me keep my energy up to see faces. All right, so let's go in the last 4 minutes. What I'm going to do is, this is something to do, is just, what does career mean to you? It's something that I talk about to all the new classes now. And it's something that again, I was curious about when I first got into this profession, in this area, right? What does career mean? So the traditional career, right? It was scary. It's a single commitment. Think about all the language. Think about your parents, right? You need to choose the right career, right? Think about your time at Haas. Oh my God, the first job out of Haas. I need to choose really well because that's going to be my career, right? It was lifelong, right? We got these messages, and when we look at society, who do we praise? We praise the people that 20 years in an organization, the 25-year watch, right? gets lauded and held up as symbols of like, oh, this is what we should do, right? Career was very mastery driven. Just again, very traditional notions, right? Did one thing, got better at it, became an expert at it, right? There were hard boundaries. Career and home are two separate things, right? You know, a lot of times we did what we did in the career so we could do what we want to do in the weekends, right? That's ultimately the biggest sacrifice, right, that people make. Career was biased heavily on knowledge and mentorship. That's how you got better at stuff, right? That's why we stuck in one field, because you can build up knowledge and stuff. But think about today. Is that true today? Right? Because way back then, knowledge and mentorship was hard to get. How to do something was hard to learn, right? A lot of you who've grown up with the internet, it's like, oh, I just go look it up on YouTube, right? You know, like it's no longer hard to get knowledge. It's no longer that hard to get mentorship or people just sharing their expertise online, right? So this idea of traditional careers was choose your career well. It's a lifetime Faustian bargain, right? If I choose this thing and I stay with it and I just do this, I'm gonna get expertise, all the rewards are gonna come, all the accolades are gonna come. That's what traditional career was like. The more modern day career is purpose-driven, right? And you've seen this over the last 20, 30 years, the rise of the mission-driven, purpose-driven organization. The link between work and life is blurred, right? Right, capabilities, people can reach expertise. You have a lot of people developing programming without even finishing college degrees. That bar has dropped. So spending a lifetime in a career to develop a skill is no longer necessary, right? Disruption is faster and expected. So, and by the way, we are living longer. Who wants to do the same thing for 40, 50 years, right? So the modern definition of career is you will have many careers to serve their purpose in life. Like, what are all the different careers you're going to have to prepare you to be really good at the thing that you want to do, that you want to contribute to, right? A lot of times when I think about students and I work with a lot of different students, you're just like, this is going to be helpful for you in the future for this goal. If you take a pivot over here, that you're going to get some really great experiences that's going to help you, again, serve that. At some point in your career, you're going to settle in like, this is the thing I want to do. And everything in the past is all of a sudden going to start to make sense for you. Like, oh yeah, I'm drawing on these skills and drawing on these skills. That's going to be helpful, right? People know that have worked with me. I'm a serial pivoter. I've had a lot of weird things in my career, but to what I'm doing today, it all played in. It all made sense in the end. So that's one thing you want to think about, right? Is what does career mean to you, right? What is it that you want to do? And it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of figuring out, you know, am I heading towards a goal? If you don't have a goal, again, come see CMG. We can help you figure that out too. Okay. We are at time, and I did want to offer 3 things. Again, reach out to a coach. We are actually putting up together more and more alumni program. That's actually part of my strategic focus for the next 2 or 3 years, is actually putting up and program not only to help you make career changes, but also to help you succeed in the job that you're at. That's one of the shifts that we're making. A lot of my appointments with alum or recent grads is simply helping them manage up, helping them with their new leadership roles or whatever. So we're going to be offering that. In addition, if you're interested, we are actually experimenting with group coaching as a way to get more alum together and talking and networking with each other around a common goal they want to do. And so one of the things we're experimenting with on May 26th, we're actually launching a pilot group coaching. It's going to be called What's Next? Group Coaching for Haas alum to discover the next chapter. It's going to go run from 12 to 1 for 5 sessions every other week. And it's really designed for people like, you know, what's next for me? And so again, that'll be up. You can sign up for that through the regular normal channels in Bears. I think we put up stuff in there. And again, the last thing I could recommend is please, just put on your calendar at the end of the session today, an annual appointment that just prompts your memory with the title, is this job still right for you? And just give yourself that moment to think and pause in this busy world and rushing world. Okay. That is all I have. Any questions? Please unmute yourself. And again, if you're really interested in learning agility, email and we'll get that. I'm going to put that together for our alum. I teach that at some private companies to help their managers and help employees. Great. Well, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I really appreciate everyone's time. And if you're able to put the on, I appreciate the tune. If you weren't, that's okay too. I hope you guys all have a rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the alumni weekend.